Hello and welcome back to You May Disagree. Today, we are stepping out of the spotlight and heading straight into the dark, smoke-filled recording studios of the 70s and 80s. We're counting down 5 Mastermind producers who completely built rock giants. Now, casual music fans love to give all the credit to the flamboyant frontmen and the shredding guitar heroes. But the reality behind the mixing board, a great record producer isn't just a button pusher who sets up microphones and hits record. They are the strict drill sergeants of rock history. They are the ones who tore apart band arrangements, rewrote song structures, and engineered the exact sonic blueprints that turned raw, hungry musicians into multi-platinum stadium legends. We are completely bypassing the standard textbook lists today to look at the true studio geniuses who possessed a definitive sonic signature. Producers whose drum snaps and vocal stacks you can recognize before you ever read the record sleeve. As always, this is my personal list, and you may disagree, so let's jump right in. Starting things off, at number 5, is the master of cinematic rock drama, Bob Ezrin. When you talk about a producer who functions as a demanding, uncompromising director behind the glass, Bob Ezrin is an absolute titan. He took a gritty shock rock club act and shaped them into an elite theatrical concept beast called Alice Cooper on landmark records like School's Out. But his work with Kiss on the 1976 Destroyer album is where he truly showed his power. The band was riding high on the raw energy of Alive, but Ezrin stepped in and acted like a military drill instructor. He wore a whistle around his neck, stopped them from playing lazy riffs, and demanded sophisticated orchestration. In fact, look no further than the band's first ever top 10 single, Beth. Peter Criss had written a rough acoustic ballad called Beck, but Ezrin completely stepped in and transformed it. He changed the lyrics, brought in a New York Philharmonic orchestra, and pretty much completely rewrote the song's musical arrangement. Without Bob Ezrin forcing Kiss out of their comfort zone and completely re-engineering that track, they would have never reached the massive mainstream stratosphere. He starts our list perfectly at number 5. Moving right along to number 4 is the undisputed king of 80s pop metal Sheen, Tom Werman. Now, if you look back at the 1980s hair metal boom, casual fans give all the credit to the leather pants and the flashy music videos. But behind the soundboard, Tom Werman was the man pulling the strings. He didn't just record bands, he engineered the exact sonic glossy finish that made heavy guitars safe for commercial radio and primetime MTV. Werman took a raw, fiercely aggressive club band like Motley Crue and produced their breakthrough masterpieces Shout at the Devil and Theater of Pain. He did the exact same thing for Twisted Sister on their massive Stay Hungry record and Cheap Trick on Dream Police. What marks Werman as a master of his craft is his obsessive focus on the arrangement. He would step into the studio, ruthlessly trim away the long, self-indulgent guitar solos, and sharpen the hooks until they were completely lethal. He demanded huge, punchy drum snaps and massive, multi-layered background vocal stacks that exploded out of the speakers. The underground purists often criticized him for cleaning up the band's dirty, street-level metal crunch, but the numbers don't lie. Werman knew exactly how to manufacture a platinum single, and his signature sonic glaze defined the entire mainstream landscape of the decade. Coming in at number 3 is the legendary British studio architect, Martin the Headmaster Birch. If you want to know what true, uncompromised heavy metal muscle sounds like, Martin Birch is the man who built the entire blueprint. He didn't care about glossy 80s pop metal trends or manufacturing top 40 radio singles. His mission was to capture the raw, bone-crushing stage power of a rock band and transfer it perfectly onto a studio vinyl record. Birch earned his nickname the Headmaster because he ran his recording sessions like a strict classroom. He was an absolute perfectionist who demanded total musical discipline from some of the biggest personalities on Earth. He engineered the classic 70s textures for Deep Purple and Black Sabbath, but his ultimate legacy was cemented when he became the exclusive creative captain for Iron Maiden. Martin Birch produced every single landmark Iron Maiden masterpiece, from 1981's Killers all the way through to 1992's Fear of the Dark. What made Birch a true genius behind the console was his ability to separate the guitars. On Iron Maiden tracks like The Trooper or Hallowed Be Thy Name, he figured out a way to layer Adrian Smith and Dave Murray's dual guitar attack so they never sounded muddy, while keeping Steve Harris's frantic galloping bass line perfectly clear right in the front of the mix. He gave heavy metal its sophisticated arena-sized authority, and he takes our number 3 spot. Claiming the number 2 spot is a literal founding father of rock production, Eddie Kramer. Now, if you know anything about classic rock history, you know Eddie Kramer is pure royalty. This is the man who engineered the mind-bending guitar textures for Jimi Hendrix, captured the thunderous drum groove for Led Zeppelin, and later gave Kiss their massive breakthrough sound on Kiss Alive. The guy is a certified genius behind the board. But today, we are stripping away the multi-platinum corporate hype to look at one of the most fascinating failures of his entire career, his attempt to salvage Wicked Lester back in 1972. Before they wore makeup, Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons were fronting a band called Wicked Lester, and their record label was trying to force them into a completely artificial, soft rock corporate pop mold. Epic Records brought in Eddie Kramer specifically to co-produce, mix, and try to fix the messy master tapes. Kramer sat at the Electric Lady Studios console doing everything he could, tweaking the dials, layering the vocals, and trying to mask the out-of-tune guitar tracking. But the material sucked so bad that even Eddie Kramer's magic couldn't save it. Kramer openly admitted years later that the record simply wasn't very good. It was a bloated, overproduced corporate hodgepodge featuring flute solos and soft rock cover tracks that completely choked out Paul and Gene's raw rock talent. The label shelved the record permanently, and that failure is exactly what forced Paul and Gene to scrap the project, fire the band, and team up with Kramer to record a much heavier 1973 demo tape that birthed the actual Kiss empire. It proves that a great producer can't polish a bad product, and it earns him our number 2 spot. And finally, taking the absolute crown at the number 1 spot is the undisputed king of sonic perfection, Robert John Mutt Lange. When you talk about a producer who completely rewrote the rulebook on how rock and pop music sounded on global radio, Mutt Lange stands entirely alone. He wasn't just a guy who adjusted volume sliders. He was an obsessive, maniacal studio mastermind who treated the mixing console like a high-tech musical weapon. Mutt Lange took a raw, hungry, street-level British rock group and meticulously engineered them into a slick, multi-platinum stadium juggernaut known as Def Leppard. On landmark albums like Pyromania and Hysteria, his perfectionism was legendary. He would spend weeks tracking a single drum snare hit or layering thousands of background vocal tracks to build a massive, operatic wall of sound. He did the exact same thing for AC/DC, stripping away the raw blues clutter from Highway to Hell and Back in Black to sharpen the guitar riffs into absolute iron. But the ultimate proof of his genius? He didn't just stay in the rock lane. In the 1990s, he took those exact same rock production techniques, the massive drum snaps, the stacked background vocals, and the immaculate melodic hooks, and injected them straight into country music with Shania Twain. He took a relatively unknown singer and co-wrote and produced Come On Over, which single-handedly became the best-selling studio album by a female act of all time. Whether he was twisting the dials for heavy metal or pop country, the man was a literal hit factory who transformed raw talent into household names. He is the blueprint for studio greatness, and he claims the absolute number 1 crown on my list. And so there you have it, 5 mastermind studio producers who completely reshaped the sonic engine of music history and built rock giants. From the theatrical rock drama of Bob Ezrin to the absolute radio-shattering perfection of Mutt Lange, these behind-the-glass geniuses proved that a great record isn't just born on a stage, it is engineered in the studio. But like I always say, you may disagree, and I really want to hear your story. Which of these master producers do you think had the greatest sonic signature? Or is there another studio wizard behind the console who you think deserves the number 1 crown? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation rolling. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the studio vaults, please like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.